Hello, and welcome to the channel. If you're fascinated by philosophy and psychology, make sure to subscribe for more thought-provoking content. Today, we're exploring two of the most intriguing psychological terms, sociopathy and psychopathy, and digging into how Nietzsche's radical philosophy helps us understand these behaviors on a deeper level. Now, you might be wondering, what does Nietzsche have to do with sociopathy and psychopathy? Well, Nietzsche's ideas about power, morality, and the human condition offer a unique perspective on how people with these conditions view the world. We'll break down the key differences between sociopathy and psychopathy and explore how Nietzsche's concepts of the will to power, master versus slave morality, and empathy, or lack thereof, can provide insights into these complex traits. So stick around till the end for some mind-expanding ideas, and let's dive right in. 1. Nietzsche's view on human nature. Will to power. Nietzsche believed that humans are primarily driven by a will to power, an inner drive to assert control and dominate, not just over others, but in every aspect of life. This can be connected to psychopathy, where individuals often manipulate others to gain power without empathy or remorse. The Übermensch. Nietzsche's Übermensch, Superman, is the person who creates their own values and transcends societal norms. While the Übermensch represents a person of strength and independence, psychopaths distort this idea, using power for personal gain and manipulation, but without any higher values or empathy for others. Rejection of conventional morality. Nietzsche argued that traditional morality, the concepts of good and evil, is a construct designed to suppress our natural, powerful instincts. Psychopaths reject these moral codes entirely, viewing them as limitations, much like Nietzsche's critique of conventional morality. Sociopaths versus psychopaths. While sociopaths often struggle with societal norms due to a troubled past, they are generally more emotionally reactive. Psychopaths, on the other hand, are detached from these moral boundaries and driven purely by the will to power, without guilt or empathy. Part 2. Nietzsche's critique of morality. The slave morality versus master morality. Nietzsche distinguished between master morality and slave morality. Master morality is rooted in values like strength, power, and individualism, qualities Nietzsche saw as essential for human flourishing. This system aligns with psychopathy, where individuals act on their own desires and reject social norms that constrain them. In contrast, slave morality is based on values like humility, kindness, and altruism. Nietzsche argued that these values, which he believed came from the oppressed, served to suppress the stronger and more creative individuals. This perspective helps explain why sociopaths may rebel against societal norms. They reject the constraints of slave morality and operate based on their own set of values, often without empathy. Morality as a tool of control. Nietzsche criticized traditional moral systems for acting as tools to control individuals. He believed that morality was created by the weak to subdue the strong, making people feel guilty for pursuing their true desires. This perspective resonates with psychopathy, where moral norms are viewed as hindrances to self-interest and personal power. Psychopaths often view moral systems as artificial constructs used to limit their potential and suppress their instinctual drives. They align with Nietzsche's idea that traditional morality is more about social control than true ethical guidance. Nietzsche's call for revaluation. Nietzsche called for a revaluation of all values, a shift from conventional, restrictive moral systems to a more liberated, individualistic approach. This concept can help us understand psychopaths who live outside these conventional moral boundaries. They may embody Nietzsche's idea of a person who creates their own values, though they tend to take this to an extreme, acting solely in their self-interest. 3. The role of empathy and compassion. Empathy in Nietzsche's philosophy. Nietzsche didn't focus much on empathy or compassion in his works. Instead, he often saw these qualities as weaknesses that hindered the individual's will to power. He believed that compassion could hold people back by encouraging them to feel pity for others instead of empowering themselves. Nietzsche's view of empathy contrasts with our modern understanding, where empathy is considered essential for healthy human relationships. However, from Nietzsche's perspective, feeling sorry for others could be seen as a moral construct that stifles growth and personal strength. Psychopathy and the lack of empathy. Psychopaths, like Nietzsche's critique of compassion, often lack empathy and are unemotional when it comes to the suffering of others. This aligns with Nietzsche's idea of a person who is free from societal moral values. They view others as tools to be used rather than equals to empathize with. Nietzsche would argue that psychopaths are liberated from the shackles of traditional moral systems that require empathy and compassion. However, this lack of empathy comes at a high cost, as it leads to manipulative, self-serving behavior that harms others. Sociopathy and selective empathy. Sociopaths, unlike psychopaths, may still have a selective form of empathy, often based on their own emotional experiences or the relationships they value. They might not feel empathy for society at large, but could form connections with specific individuals. This limited empathy aligns with Nietzsche's concept of personal relationships. The will to power can sometimes extend to those close to them, but it remains self-centered. Rejection of conventional compassion. Nietzsche's views on compassion can help us understand why some individuals, especially psychopaths, might reject societal norms that encourage altruism. They may see these norms as a form of moral weakness that prevents them from acting on their desire for power, control, and self-interest. Sociopaths, in contrast, might reject compassion as a tool of manipulation used by society to control them, but they might still be capable of understanding strategic empathy in certain situations. 4. Nietzsche's thoughts on evil and morality. Nietzsche's redefinition of evil. Nietzsche famously rejected traditional ideas of good and evil, seeing them as constructs created by societal and religious institutions to maintain control. He argued that what society labels as evil is often simply the rejection of conformity or the pursuit of power outside accepted norms. According to Nietzsche, the concept of evil is used to suppress the strong, creative, and independent individuals who challenge the status quo. Those who don't adhere to societal values, such as psychopaths or sociopaths, might be viewed as evil by society, but Nietzsche would argue they're simply acting in alignment with their own will to power, free from conventional morality. Psychopathy and the Nietzschean view of evil. Psychopaths are often viewed as evil due to their lack of empathy, manipulation, and disregard for societal norms. From a Nietzschean perspective, however, they aren't necessarily evil, but are simply individuals who have freed themselves from the moral constructs that society imposes. Psychopathy might even be seen as an extreme form of Nietzsche's will to power, as psychopaths act according to their desires and needs without being constrained by traditional ethical codes. While this is not the same as creating one's own values for the betterment of society, Nietzsche might see their rejection of conventional morality as a form of personal liberation, albeit a destructive one. Sociopathy and the struggle against evil. Sociopaths, on the other hand, might struggle more with the traditional labels of good and evil because they are more affected by past trauma and emotional wounds. They might reject morality because they see it as a tool of oppression used against them, rather than simply a force of control. Nietzsche's critique of morality can help explain why sociopaths may perceive themselves as victims of a system that judges them for their inability to fit into conventional roles. While sociopathy involves emotional instability and impulsivity, it can be understood as an attempt to break free from the moral chains that society enforces. Conclusion on evil and morality. Nietzsche's philosophy challenges the conventional view of good and evil by questioning the validity of moral systems that are built on guilt and shame. Psychopaths and sociopaths, in this context, might be seen as individuals who have transcended society's moral framework, but in a way that can be harmful to others. While Nietzsche's ideas encourage breaking free from societal norms, he also emphasized the importance of creating new values that align with life-affirming goals, not just self-serving or destructive behavior. 5. How Nietzsche helps us understand these disorders. Nietzsche's influence on understanding sociopathy and psychopathy. Nietzsche's philosophy provides a deeper insight into behaviors that fall outside of traditional morality. Sociopathy and psychopathy, often labeled as disorders, can be seen through Nietzsche's lens as responses to a broken world that fails to acknowledge the individual's desire for power and self-determination. Sociopaths might reject societal norms due to trauma or perceived betrayal by the system, while psychopaths might be individuals who have gone beyond societal morality entirely, embracing a more extreme form of Nietzsche's will to power. Psychopathy as the extreme will to power. Psychopaths, with their lack of empathy and emotional detachment, mirror Nietzsche's concept of the Übermensch, overman, who transcends traditional moral boundaries to live according to their own will and vision. However, Nietzsche's Übermensch creates life-affirming values, while psychopaths often create values that serve their selfish interests without concern for others. Nietzsche's philosophy helps us understand that while psychopathy might seem like an extreme rejection of morality, it's essentially the manifestation of unchecked will to power, an individual following their own desires without the ethical constraints that society imposes. Sociopathy and the will to power. Sociopaths, on the other hand, may act out of a need to challenge or destroy the system that they feel has oppressed or wronged them. Nietzsche's idea of slave morality helps explain why sociopaths might feel alienated or antagonistic towards society, as they reject the values imposed by it and rebel against them in destructive ways. For Nietzsche, the struggle against oppression is part of the human condition, and sociopathy can be seen as an expression of resistance against a moral framework that doesn't fit with the person's lived experiences or desires. The need for self-overcoming. Nietzsche believed that individuals must strive to overcome themselves to become truly free. While both psychopaths and sociopaths might embody the rejection of societal norms, Nietzsche would argue that true freedom comes not from mindless destruction or manipulation, but from the creation of a higher self, a self-mastery that transcends the reactive, emotionally driven behaviors seen in these disorders. True self-overcoming involves embracing one's power without exploiting or hurting others, creating life-affirming values that benefit both the individual and society. Nietzsche's vision offers a path beyond the limitations of traditional morality, one that embraces individual growth and responsibility. This part brings everything together by showing how Nietzsche's ideas can help us understand the behaviors of sociopathy and psychopathy. It emphasizes that these disorders might represent extreme forms of the will to power, but true self-overcoming, as Nietzsche envisioned, requires more than just rebellion. It requires creating life-affirming values and finding freedom in self-mastery. This conclusion helps wrap up the video in a way that connects Nietzsche's ideas to modern psychological behaviors while encouraging a deeper reflection on personal growth. Conclusion. Recap of key ideas. So to summarize, Nietzsche's philosophy helps us understand the complex nature of sociopathy and psychopathy. These behaviors, while often viewed negatively, can be seen as expressions of individuals rejecting societal norms and pursuing their own will to power. Nietzsche challenges us to rethink our definitions of good and evil, encouraging a revaluation of values that frees individuals from traditional moral constraints. Nietzsche's vision of self-overcoming. However, Nietzsche's true vision of freedom isn't just about rejecting morality. It's about self-overcoming, creating new, life-affirming values that not only empower the individual, but also transcend the harm caused by unchecked selfishness. If this video resonated with you, don't forget to like, subscribe, and share your thoughts in the comments below. Let's keep the conversation going. What do you think about Nietzsche's views on sociopathy and psychopathy, and how do you interpret his ideas in the context of modern psychology? Thank you. Thank you for watching. Your support means the world to me. See you in the next video.